I just finished watching every single pre-fight press conference for the UFC card this weekend, and today, guys, I wanted to go through each fighter to kind of get a gauge on how they're feeling, where their headspace is at, whether or not you just are interested in the fighters or taking a look at this from the betting perspective, because there was some very, very interesting things that I want to dive into, guys. We're going to talk about all of that with timestamps in just a second. Before we do, though, I do want to say hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's get started. And I want to start off with Amir Albazi. What's very interesting is I was watching a few full card breakdown videos. I watch a lot of MMA content while I'm at work, and I came across the MMA Guru's video about breaking down the entire card, and he was speaking about Amir Albazi and that he was almost paralyzed. And I was sitting there and I was like, what? I don't know what or how true this was, but I thought he had a shoulder injury. I thought he had surgery on that or something, but Amir Albazi opened up completely about everything that was going on to him. So he did almost get paralyzed. He needed emergency heart surgery. He had I can't remember exactly what parts, but he had a lot of different body issues, and now he has a titanium neck. Not only is that an incredible amount of stress to put your body through, but I can't imagine how much time he spent off of training. All of that is literally making me want to bet on Brandon Moreno, and I was not confident in Brandon Moreno prior to learning about this with Amir Albazi. To have heart surgery, to have a brand new titanium neck, and to have just the issues that he's been having really, really is scary from a picking perspective, and honestly scary for somebody entering the ring. How many times have we seen these guys have like things like spine surgery? I know that spine surgery is probably like the worst surgery you could have, but even then, a new neck, like, come on, heart surgery? I don't know how I'm feeling about Amir Albazi, but in saying that, he's in high spirits, he's confident in himself, and he seems to think, and I don't know why why wouldn't you think that, right? He's very confident that he'll get the job done. I don't like hearing that and thinking that Amir Albazi is going to perform well. But speaking of fighters looking to perform well, I want to talk about Rose Namajunas next. And if you guys have been following the channel, you would know that I typically stay away from betting on Rose Namajunas or picking Rose Namajunas, especially in recent times, because you never know what's going on with this girl. One day she wants to play the piano, the next day she just wants to live on a farm, and then other days she wants to be a UFC champion. As of right now, which I will remind you could change on the fly. Tomorrow she could be feeling incredibly different. She appears to be very happy. She appears to be very content, liking to talk to the media, and she wants to be a martial artist right now. She wants to be the best martial artist that she could possibly be, and she's looking to become a champion. She's looking to test her skill set against somebody like Erin Blanchfield. So she seems to be in the proper headspace for a fight, and if she keeps this attitude throughout the entire week and throughout the fight, I do believe that she's going to perform very well. The problem is, with Rose Namajunas, I believe she could wake up tomorrow and feel completely different. She's not motivated anymore. She just wants to play the piano. And you know what? I'm not dogging on her for that. It's just she seemed to be very inconsistent as time's gone on. She's very respectful of Erin Blanchfield. She was really speaking about using her technique, learning, like, I'm feeling good as of right now for Rose Namajunas. But I do want to talk about Mike Malott as well. And this one is a very, very interesting one because I don't know exactly how to take what I listened to from him. So he said this, that he is the most confident that he's ever been despite him coming off of a loss. He said that he learned a lot of lessons because I know everybody was throwing around fraud check, and there are a lot of questions we have about Mike Malott's game now because he took on his first, that was his first rank contender, right? But regardless, his first high-level or high-regarded opponent, or high-regarded depending on exactly how you look at the division, it doesn't matter, his first big name. We had a lot of questions. So he seems to have taken his loss well. Everything that's coming out of his mouth is telling me that he's taken his loss well. But he was really reluctant to actually speak about that loss. I don't know if it's just because he wants to move forward from something. I don't know if he's just looking forward to this brand new matchup. Or he is a little bit like self-conscious about it. Because again, like looking at his demeanor, it seems like it's giving me mixed feelings. I don't know, like, am I looking at him and he's confident? Is he ready for the fight? I'm not too sure, but the right things are coming out of his mouth. But then again, he didn't want to elaborate on those lessons that he learned. And those lessons, maybe he just wants to keep them a secret for the bout. You kind of understand what I'm saying in this sense? Mike Malott, I'm not so sure what to think. If any of you have actually watched Mike Malott's press conference, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it down below. But now let's talk about Pedro Munhoz, one of my favorite fighters of all time. I'm going to be sitting here and cheering for Pedro Munhoz. Something that I actually didn't know about Pedro Munhoz, or if I did, it slipped my mind, is that he's making the transition into coaching. I don't know if you're going to be active in the UFC bantamweight division, the toughest division and most well-regarded division, the most talented division of the entirety of combat sports. I respect the idea of him becoming a coach, and I love that idea for him as a person. But when you are in the division that you're in, at the age that you're at, is it necessarily a good idea for your UFC career to transition into coaching? Again, it's great to set that up for when you're done. Like, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be coaching. I just question, is this taking away from any training that Pedro Munhoz has been doing? Other than that, though, Pedro Munhoz spoke about his age. He said his body's still holding up. He spoke a little bit about retirement. He doesn't think that retirement's in the near future as of right now because his body's still holding up, and he knows that when his body is unable to hold up, he is going to call it quits. A lot of people have been talking about that because it seems like Pedro Munhoz is getting towards the end of his career now, or obviously is getting towards the end of his career, but according to Pedro Munhoz, training's going well, his body's holding up. I worry a little bit about that transition to coaching at this stage of his career, but it's very commendable all the same. Now, though, let's circle back to some of the things that I was saying about Mike Malott, actually, because I can say a little bit more of the same about Erin Blanchfield. So, Erin does seem to be taking the loss that she just had well. I just question it because, again, like, we're listening to the words coming out of her mouth, but I'm listening to Erin Blanchfield also being very reluctant to give specifics about it. Even when she was talking about taking that loss, she's like, yeah, I learned lessons. There were some things that I could take away from that fight, but both of us had our moments, and she was talking kind of like that was a competitive fight. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it was a hard-fought fight, but competitive? I don't know, and to be fair to her, she didn't use competitive fight, but she was very much alluding to that was a very close fight, which I have a little bit of an issue if you're learning from this experience. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be open about what happened. That's really the only big takeaway I have from Erin Blanchfield. This was her first big loss that we've seen, and she could very well lose to a talented fighter in Namajunas, so I think this is a very important fight because if she doesn't show any improvements and she still walks forward for 5 rounds and eats shots the whole time, we know how this girl takes losses, and we know that she doesn't learn from them. But again, she was saying the right things. The things coming out of her mouth said that she was fixing some things in her game, but again, she didn't go into any specifics like Mike Malott, but to give her the benefit of the doubt, perhaps she does want to keep that a secret. Just something to keep in mind. But now, guys, I want to talk about Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno, I was very, very interested to hear about because I had a lot of questions. If you guys have been following the channel, I had a lot of questions about Brandon Moreno. Did he take too much damage? Is he feeling less motivated? Or was it literally just like something like the elevation for his last fight? Because in his last fight, he just did not look like himself one little bit. So I was worried about Brandon Moreno for his health, for just like him having too many miles on his body for his age, things like that. But after listening to Brandon Moreno, I am feeling much, much better about him. So he literally spoke about all this, and he went really in depth. Unlike we've talked about with Erin Blanchfield, Mike Malott, he is still motivated. He still feels in his prime, and he's very, very young, but not young in his career. He is very experienced. He still feels to be in his prime. He's still motivated. The reason for him taking the layoff wasn't anything necessarily to do with fighting, but it was strictly for him to spend time with his family, spend time with his kids, and get his hobbies. We all know that Brandon Moreno is like really into Legos, really into collecting Pokemon cards, all those types of things. So I believe him when he says that. I know a lot of people would admit like, yeah, you know what, I'm not feeling the fighting thing anymore. But I really do believe that from him because we know that Brandon Moreno is a huge, huge family man. We know that he actually dives into these hobbies, and he's been fighting so often and having so many hard 5-round fights. I completely believe him when he's saying he just wants to take time off and spend time with his family because that's from everything that we've seen from Brandon Moreno, that's been very, very important to him. He opened up a little bit more specifically about the loss. He said that he felt good, no excuses, and he did mention this, that this does happen to other fighters. He said that his mind just wasn't there. His mind just wasn't there. It was just one of those nights. Everybody does have an off night. That's true. I have an extensive background in martial arts, and for a lot of you watching who do participate in any martial art whatsoever, you would know that there are times you walk in there and you do have off nights. That happens for UFC fighters as well. And Brandon Moreno, he's never given us a reason to not believe him in that sense. At least he wasn't talking about like, oh, I just needed to get this surgery. And I think I don't look at that and say, oh, Brandon Moreno's making excuses. People have off nights. He didn't take anything away from Brandon Royval. He didn't even talk about the elevation, really. He just had an off night. He wasn't feeling it, and he took a break to spend some time with his kids. He also mentioned, reminded me of Alexander Volkanovski a little bit, that he is very, very hungry for the title still, and a little bit into that layoff because he's coming back sooner than he said he would. He got that itch to fight. So I am feeling very good about what I heard from Brandon Moreno, and combining what I heard from Brandon Moreno, feeling very good about him, and listening to Amir Albazi open up about having emergency heart surgery, having a titanium neck, and those injuries that he's been through, I think I know how that fight's going to go now, and I know pretty well where I'm going to want to put my money on that. And it'd be shocking if Brandon Moreno didn't win this fight after listening to everything that we just listened. If you guys want to hear more about that fight specifically, or any more fights on this card, I do have a full card breakdown video for you if you'd like me to dive into every fight about just as much as we possibly could. I would love to have you over there. Thank you for watching, everybody.